Morning, everyone. This is the June 13th meeting of the Dunn County Planning Resource and Development Committee. All committee members are present. So approval of the minutes from May 23rd.
I'll move approval,
Supervisor
Mr. Chairman.
Morehouse moves. Is there a second? Supervisor Kinnear seconds. Any questions or corrections or discussion? Okay, all in favor of approval, say aye. Both say no. Minutes are approved. Do we have any public comments?
No, nothing.
No one here? Okay. We have no public hearing. So we'll go to item 6, staff reports, Register of Deeds monthly report. Just to review it a little bit. Go ahead, Heather.
Good morning. This monthly update is a combination of both April and May. I wanted to point out, which I've attached some reports. Tom, maybe if you could scroll down. We passed the resolution, yes. And that was to support a request for a 50-50 split with the state. Senator Staffsholt has introduced legislation that is, well, it's a gradual increase in the county share. You can see here, if it were to pass in 2023, it would be 70-30. And then 2025, 60-40 split, and then 2026 at 50-50 split. So that would increase our share, but then in addition to that, the legislation is reducing the transfer fee from $3 per thousand to $2 per thousand. So yeah, so that is a little bit of a difference in what we were asking, because we were asking for the fee to remain at the $3 per thousand with the 50-50 split. So this is in progress now. I'm not exactly sure of the status. So then Tom, if you scroll down, I wanted to share our numbers so you could kind of see the differences. And then to point out, so I did run numbers from January to April of 2022 to January to April in 2023, our transfer fee collection, we're down 48% from 2022 to 2023. Just not seeing the sales. But this table kind of gives you, or this chart gives you it shows you, so for 2022, the total value transferred in the black there, you can see it was, 298 million at $3 per thousand. The revenue we collected was 894,000. So at the current, as it sits now, the state would have received 715,000. The county would have retained the 178. Okay, then in the red, this was our proposed resolution. So staying at the $3 per thousand, 50-50 split, it would have been 447,000. So, and then now moving to the legislation, the proposed legislation, the $2 per thousand, you're looking at $596,000 in revenue. But you can see the share, at 70-30, 60-40. I mean, it does increase the county share. It's just overall the numbers, right now with real estate trending lower, we're just not seeing that revenue. But so I just wanted to share that.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yeah.
Do you understand the rationale for this kind of phased in approach?
So I did send just numbers to our representatives and our senators just so that they had hard numbers to look at when I'm looking at this legislation. And I spoke to Senator Staffsholt, and he indicated that, when working with Wisconsin Counties Association, that they just felt that this was, I suppose for the state's purpose too, it's not as big of a hit to the state, so it's a gradual increase to the county, but it isn't as big of a hit to the state to do it just that hard line 50-50 split. So I think that was one of the maybe driving forces. And then he also mentioned that the Realtors Association was on board with this lowering the fee. Yeah, I'm not, yeah, that's,
Thank you.
Any other questions, Heather? Yeah.
So does the TF in the chart had like
Carry your
18,
button.
18, deaths? Does the like new babies and deaths kind of average out, or is there an increased population? Is it people moving in?
so. So for this chart, because we've gone to statewide issuance and so forth, the birth records actually go directly from the hospital or midwife to the state. So we don't actually see
Oh,
the birth
okay.
records. So I don't typically pull the numbers for the births, but the deaths now, Dunn County is, if the death is, if it happens in Dunn County, so the death occurs in Dunn County, then Dunn County must file the record. So those are only the deaths that occur in Dunn County that we file though. But then there's statewide issuance for death records. So then what we'll see is a lot of our local funeral homes, regardless of where the death was, as long as it was in Wisconsin, they can order the records through our office.
Okay.
So we usually are working with our local funeral homes, for copies, but in a lot of cases now, if someone passes away in Eau Claire they're working with a funeral home in Eau Claire, that funeral home will probably go through the Eau Claire County Register of Deeds. And same with the marriages now. So I listed the number of marriages that we actually filed, but in May, there were 15 marriages in Dunn County, but only 6 of them were filed. We filed 6 of those marriages. So they're able to take their marriage record just for convenience for our constituents. They're able to take their marriage record wherever they live yeah. So.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, it's a little bit hard to,
So if a traffic accident happened on the interstate and somebody from out of state died, but if it happened in Dunn County, then it'd be recorded in Dunn County.
exactly.
Huh.
Yep. But then, yeah. And in that case, if it was out of state, they would work with us for copies, but yeah, it would be filed in our county. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Heather.
Mhm, thank you.
Survey Division. Mr. Carlson.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tom. I don't really have much to add. As Heather mentioned, it's a consolidated report for 2 months, April and May. So just have our normal statistics in there. I will note in April, I attended a Wisconsin Towns Association meeting. It was a Dunn County unit meeting. So I gave a presentation on coordination and cooperation between county or my office mainly and towns, as far as, we have a lot of section corners in roadways that get ripped out, destroyed, damaged, disturbed every year with road building activities. So I gave a presentation on the importance of working together to make sure that when the road is completed, we can get a survey marker put back in, and we've had really good cooperation in the past, and I just want to continue that going forward. So I think it was positively received. So I don't have anything else to add unless there's any specific questions on the report or the budget figures.
Just one question on the section markers, like inside the middle of the road. You just go off to inside a ditch, say, well, 20 feet in this like direction, whatever coordinates, and that's where it belongs, or how do you really mark it then?
Well, the actual corner typically falls, it does fall in the road. So we put for years, we would put 7/8 inch diameter rebar. They're 30 inches long. We drive them in the road, put a cap on. In low places, wet places, they would heave up every spring. We'd end up pulling them out. I still get phone calls from town shares periodically that there's a rebar heaved out in April. So now for years, we were putting railroad spikes in, but technically you can't be removing those from the rail line or private property. Surveyors did it for years. So now we're using these magnetic nails. They're both 3 inches long. They have a convex head on them, so the snow plows go over them, don't tear them out. When the road builders come through, they pulverize the road. It gets ground right up with the equipment. We don't have a mangled rebar under the road. So I'm answering your question in a roundabout way here, but typically the corners do fall in the roads and we have to set a physical marker there. That's what the surveyors measure from. So many people think, oh, we have GPS, we don't need markers anymore, but it's very important to remember that monuments mark corners of property, not a coordinate on a computer system. The coordinate helps you find the marker, but you have to survey from a physical monument. So it's very important that we have a stable monument at the correct location in the road. But then Wisconsin Administrative Code requires that we set a minimum of 4 witnesses or reference points to that physical marker. They can be building corners, typically they're rebars or pipe, and those we like to put on within the road right of way. So there'll be 4 of those typically in the 4 quadrants, northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast, and we record the directions and distances to those. If that section marker in the road would ever get disturbed or removed, then somebody can back it in from those known distances from 4 known points.
So do the utility companies come to you then and say, we're gonna be doing some work in the like right away and,
Not as often as I would like.
okay,
With broadband going through, they've been kind of warned that, hey, your corridor is running through our public land survey system. So I've been in touch with quite a few project managers just in the last year, because as you know, there's a big push for broadband right now. And I've been working with those folks as well to make sure that, if it's unavoidable, that's fine, but please let me know ahead of time so we can put it on our list and get a marker back in when you're done. So
Okay.
it helps everybody, including the taxpayers that are hiring a private surveyor down the road. It can certainly add considerable expense if these markers are removed and not replaced. So,
thank you.
yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Tom. Planning and zoning. Yeah,
I guess I don't have anything to add here to my report, but if anybody has any questions, I'm here.
Mr. Chair, may I?
yes.
I looked at 145 unscheduled walk-ins,
Yeah.
and that's in 2 months.
Yes.
So you're working at your desk and then somebody comes to the door and rings the bell and they say they want to talk to you. So then.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And so we just kind of started keeping track of that. We have a little calendar next to our window there that we mark. So we're gonna keep doing that for the rest of the summer and see what it looks like.
Okay, and is there someone that mans the window there?
No.
No, I was thinking of that. Whoever is available goes and answers.
Yep. So we kind of try to take turns and work it out amongst ourselves and make sure we're not all leaving at lunch at the same time or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I have a question, this is something I should know, but I'm only guessing at. Issued a total of 96 zoning permits. That's not sanitary. So when you issue a zoning permit, it's a permit to do what?
So it's typically a change in use or a structure. Most of the time it's a structure. So if someone's building, say, a shed on their property, we have to issue a permit for that. And we have to do a site visit. So one of our inspectors goes out to the property and makes sure that they're meeting all of their setbacks and building what they said they were going to build. So there's a lot of time involved in that 96.
And you said sometimes it's a change in use?
Yeah, so it's say, I'm trying to think of a good example of that. So if they were, say, going to have an agritourism use, so they would have maybe a petting zoo for animals, we would have to do it that way. It wouldn't be permitting a structure, but we'd make sure that they're still in line with the zoning ordinance. And we do a site visit for that too.
Do you think everybody comes in that is putting up a building or is changing uses?
I know they don't all.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of people. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor Burke.
But if they don't come in for a building permit and they go ahead or zoning permit, doesn't the cost go up double?
If we find out about it.
Yep.
Then it
Okay.
is a double. It's an after the fact permit fee. Yep.
Okay, so there is an incentive to get it first.
Yeah, I would say too that, a lot of times the permit protects the person who's building because it says, hey, look, we are doing this correctly. It's within the setbacks. It's confirming all of that for them. So that later down the road, if they go to sell their property or build another structure, they know that it's correct.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Sam. Land and water conservation, Chase.
So we agreed that we were gonna combine reports and then I failed to do that. So there's two in there, April and then the one for May. There's a lot going on in our division as well. Just a couple things to point out, and I'd be happy to answer some questions. Hopefully you've all kind of been made aware through the emails about Joint Finance Committee and the funding for our staff. There was, I would say, an overwhelming support and understanding that Joint Finance Committee was going to increase funding for local land conservation department staff. At the end, midnight or whatever it was, the Joint Finance Committee closed out. They actually decreased state funding for local land conservation unknowingly. They thought they were maintaining the base level that's currently funded. So there was a kind of a predicament they put themselves in and needed to go back. And our understanding right now is that we're going to be maintained at the level that we were at for the 23-24 biennium. So kind of unfortunate because there was a lot of effort that went into, as there has been for past budget cycles, and to have tremendous support across the state and then to not come through is kind of disappointing. Another note regarding funding, and I'm not sure everyone's aware of it, but all of you familiar with Dan Zaire with the OB Extension. He was works on a lot of watershed projects. Certainly the Red Cedar TMDL, very instrumental in putting that together and maintaining it. Through the current budget process, the line item in DNR's budget was removed to fund those positions, which after you leverage out everything, it ends up being about 8 individuals across the state. Natural resource educators is their title. So there is a window of hope through the UW Extension budget to get those positions funded back in there. And I can provide more information on that if you're interested. But as of right now, it's possible that Dan will be out of a job at the end of the year, which is a huge hole for us in our area and a lot of the work that we do. So if you have interest in that, let me know and I can get you more information. Other than that, on a better note, Thursday is a nitrogen optimization pilot program, the grant that the farmer-led group, Red Cedar Conservation Farmers, received, and there'll be a kind of a pop-up field day there. So you're welcome to attend that. And then I'd be happy to answer any of the probably numerous questions or comments as part of the report I have. So.
Thanks, Chase. Any questions? You're right. Losing Dan would be a real blow to he does a lot of important work in the region.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
This isn't an individual question, but just as a group, I am often amazed at how much work you do, and how well you do it and how well you manage the ups and downs and sort of craziness. So I personally am delighted at your professionalism and all the work that you do. So thank you all.
You're here. I think we all agree. I know we all agree. Any other questions? Okay.
Just one quick
Okay.
comment. You got over 500 well samples. I suppose it's more than that now even, huh?
Yeah, I think after yesterday, we probably have another 40 or 50 that have come in. So speaking of crazy, it's a crazy time right now with that, but surprisingly, it's going quite well. So there's good response. We're going to write a book when we're done of the experience because there's some stories to tell. So
Heather tells me that there is someone from the Land and Water the communications department from Land and Water is touring with her today
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm going to have my well tested today. So
I think
kind of excited.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
So we'll get a little bit of recognition for the county well and the staff well for that. Okay. If no other questions, then we'll move on to review of the proposed ordinance amendment draft regarding residential uses in commercial zoning districts.
I'm just gonna share my screen so I can bring that up for everyone.
We didn't get this.
No, I know. We
Yep.
didn't send it out in the package.
Yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
no, it's fine.
Yeah, hopefully it does. I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit here. Get a little closer. All right. So I can kind of just talk about this a little bit, but then we can just take a look. What, are we missing one? Are you, what are you? This one?
13.2.9. Oh, there it is. All right.
Yep. So the first change would be to just remove this.
Get one quick bigger. I'm sorry to interrupt. Better.
There we go. Okay, yeah.
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just removing this part of the purpose statement in the limited commercial district. The non-owner occupied single family or multifamily dwellings shall be included in the 3,000 square foot restriction. Basically just removing this because they won't be a principal structure at this point. All right, so permitted principal structures, just taking out item B, non-owner occupied dwelling, including single and multifamily dwellings. So dwellings will not be permitted as principal structures if we do this change. Single family residences, only as accessory to a principal use would be as a permitted accessory use. And same with the structure.
So how do you define that, Heather? Accessory to a principal use?
It's not the main use of the property, so it's the secondary use. It's smaller typically, doesn't always have to be smaller in square footage, but it's not the main use of the
Okay.
property.
The example that Ann and I talked about when we were talking through these. I hate to pick on the Whitkeys, but they provide a really good example. They're right on the highway. First there was a house, and then there was a business that came in with large buildings, and I don't know, was it rezoned commercial? And so once upon a time, there was a house along the highway. Now there's a business along the highway that has a single family residence on there. So the residence is, in essence, is an accessory use now for the business that's on commercial property. I say that right?
Perfect.
All right. So these changes, if they were accepted, would eliminate opportunity for someone to, a developer or whatever, to utilize commercial zoning to establish residential neighborhoods, residential subdivisions, and it would also eliminate, or it would eliminate the possibility of somebody using the zoning ordinance to contradict, I guess, any town's comprehensive plan. So when towns get together, they plan out, this is going to be a commercial. We would like to cluster commercial areas here. This is residential. This is agricultural. And that would not, a developer wouldn't be able to make an end run or thwart or contradict the intended development established by any town in their comprehensive plan.
Pleasure, can you?
And just to confirm, I think it says this, but I know Chase Potter was in and he was concerned that the small business with an attached home or as an accessory use, he really wants to make sure we have that. And this does that. Is that correct?
In a commercial zone,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And I guess in the interest of transparency, there was some discussion about whether owner occupied should be part of it. And it's not included in here. Requiring owner occupied could possibly violate a restriction in state law about leasing. If a single family residence is present because it's lawful, it really gets to be a deep and difficult enforcement to scrutinize that anyway. And we were able to talk through a situation where if a business owner that had a single family residence as an accessory use wanted to sell their business and lease it back to the new owner, but keep the property, the house would have to sit. So let's say I want to sell my business and move to Florida for the winters. Now the house that I once lived in would have to remain vacant because I'm the owner. So it would just sit there and be vacant. And that's an undesirable outcome anyway. So for a number of reasons, we didn't include that. I should say Ann didn't include it. She drafted these.
Okay.
And if you like it, I can have it in more formal ordinance form for your next meeting. And it could come to county board in July.
Is that so that's the sum total of the changes?
Yes.
Well, that looks good to me, as far as from the town of Menominee standpoint of view too. It eliminates the problem, but still allows the businesses to be there. Tom?
Yeah, I think this addresses the concerns I remember us having.
We got the thumbs up, from at least one township behind us. Two, no, one.
Okay. So our town board chairs who are here are in agreement that we should go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you
We'll
very
have a
much.
draft ready for your next meeting.
Yeah. That was easier than I expected. Thank you for the good work. Very helpful. Thanks a lot for coming, Nick.
And thanks for putting up with, I'm gonna say us, but
Well,
me.
me.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah, let's be clear.
Yeah, yeah, let's be clear. Yeah, like at home, we say us or we, and it's usually me. Thank you very much.
Status on comprehensive land use plan, man.
I just wanted to give a quick update on where we are with the comp plan. So Cedar Core has provided some draft documents for the data updates that they were to do as part of their contract. Those are on housing issues and opportunities and existing land use. There are existing land use maps that are complete, and they're finishing up on the trends and existing development patterns section at the moment. And we're hoping to maybe bring these to PRND in July. See what we get. So that's about where we are. If anybody has any questions.
Be great. Any questions? Right. We are gonna break our record today. Thanks, Sam. Then the item 8, approval of housing work group member composition. Ms. Corpola.
So this is, sorry. This is at least a starting recommendation for the composition of a housing work group. I did add some names, although I think that in adopting the list, we might want to leave it just as the positions and not necessarily the names, just in case the people change, then we don't have to bring back an action. So 2 county board supervisors, the city administrator, the Momentum West executive director, Steve, can act in a informal sense. He cannot be a formal member, just given the constrictions of his board not wanting it to appear as if he has favorite activity in any particular county. But he is willing to participate because Momentum has been active in working on housing issues and has held, I think, 3 housing forums that UW host out. And then Paula Winter, or the DHS director, Luisa Gersimo, who's been active in the housing advisory team, and one of the township chair people. I asked Bob if he would be interested, Bob Cook or Tony, or if neither of them are able to, I'll keep searching. And then recommendation for community member of Rob McDougall.
Any thoughts from the committee?
It's number like 7, Robert McDougall. What's his?
Go ahead, Dan.
Rob McDougall is Reverend Dr. Rob McDougall. He is a retired minister. He was the minister of my church for 27 years. He was one of the founders of what is now Stepping Stones. By 100 years ago, it was called Interfaith Volunteers, and was the person actually responsible for constructing the first 2 homeless shelters in Menominee, and he's very interested in pursuing this.
I was just kind of curious. I didn't know the name, and then
Yeah.
have a history on it.
Rob is also, of course, what was the husband of Wendy McDougall. So he's familiar with county government. Any other thoughts or questions? Next steps in this, Chris, would be.
I think it's just your approval of this membership.
yeah.
Yep. And Ann and I would co-chair and lead this group.
Great.
Yeah.
I know at the last HAT meeting, there was, I think, some reservations from the larger group about, well, now we're narrowing this down to a small group that's gonna, and we're not, how are we gonna remain involved? And I'm sure you thought about that, and we're not in any way intending to narrow this opportunity to participate. So there will be, I assume, ample opportunity for other engagement from citizens.
They will be they're open meetings, so they will be noticed, and we'll make sure we get that notice out to other individuals who might be interested. But more importantly, this was really born out of the fact that the recommendations coming out of the housing study are extensive. And they're a little overwhelming, and they're certainly overwhelming to a large group of individuals to look at and try to pair out what might be able to be accomplished, and just picking out what might be the easiest places to start. And so this was really an effort to create a defined group who would be able to look at those recommendations and say, where do we start and who needs to be at the table in order to move these things further. So I think that there are any number of other kind of focuses that I would anticipate would eventually, be brought in and involved in the process. But it's just when you work with, 8, 10, 12, 15 people, it's really difficult to narrow the focus. And this is 8, so it's not small in and of itself, but.
Okay. Yeah.
Question, Boyceville did a housing study too, right?
They did.
Do they have a representative here or are they
They,
going their
they
own
do
way?
not, and I haven't talked to them, but that is a really good point. I don't know where they're going with theirs. Do you know, Anne, have you, I mean, Anne, look at you again and say you, Diane.
Yeah, I have not talked to Susan about where Boyceville is proceeding, but that is a good question. And I believe, and the county report is largely finished, and I would assume that both the city of Menominee and the Boyceville studies are also complete, so it's a good follow-up.
But I certainly will reach out to them and see where they're at too. The housing study report or the outcome of the report will come to the county board in July.
Yeah, I applaud you in keeping the group small as possible because to get something done, it's tough with a big group. And I assume as you're going along with this 7 or 8 or 9 people that are there at the time, that if you see, well, we need more information, you would just have someone come in and speak.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or we need to make a decision about this and we need people's expertise. Invite them to come in and help us sort out what the next step would be.
Yeah, that sounds way better than having the experts sit there at every meeting and get bored.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, great job. Great start. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
it seems like to get the most housing done, it would have to be done through the private community, you know. So is part of your focus to have less restrictions on development? So it makes it easier for somebody to come in and build some housing developments.
I think that's one particular, one potential area of focus. I don't know if it will end up being lesser, but maybe clearer direction. I know one of the conversations that happened early on was if you were someone new looking to come into our community, where do you start? And who do you contact and how do you go about moving forward? And obviously developers have a ton of expertise and have done this in more than one area, but there's a saying about counties, if you've seen one county, you've seen one county. And so it's, it's, I think, helping to create a framework for navigating what do things look like for doing business in Dunn County. And then if there are areas that are maybe perhaps unnecessarily cumbersome, looking at bringing changes to those.
So,
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yeah.
In response to Supervisor Bjork, I mean, that's the principal reason why it makes perfect sense to sort of house this task group going forward in planning and zoning, because they're looking at zoning as either incentive or disincentive
okay.
to ongoing development. It seems appropriate.
So is the main focus on apartments, duplexes, or single family, or everything possible?
I think it's really looking at how do you move things forward in our county in housing, and it could really be a start in any of those areas or the underpinnings to any of those areas, like our zoning or our land use or what the various pieces that at this point in time, all we have are the recommendations to look at those things, not necessarily even identification that we have an issue. All we have is anecdotal evidence that housing is happening more aggressively in other communities than it is in ours without an awareness of exactly why that is.
I think the study indicates or points towards sort of a ladder of housing in which people enter the market at a certain level and then eventually they may split off into different areas, and all of those need to be available. Could I have a motion to approve for formation of the working group?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move to approve the housing work group composition.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second?
I'll second. Gary.
Thank you, Monica. Any further discussion? Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Chris. Excellent work. Let's see. I guess our land division ordinance will be coming for its first reading at this month's county board meeting. Any other announcements? Okay. Our next meeting is June 27th, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Somebody write this down.